jump start on hearing from people about their spending priorities for Toronto.
I'm here today to try to advocate for more youth hub funding.
To build modular rapid housing for our most vulnerable.
Olivia Chow heads to Scarborough tonight as she gets set to build her first spending plan for Toronto. What to save and what to cut amid a $1.5 billion funding gap.
I gotta lock these guys inside, right? It's 4 against 1. I'm not gonna get hurt over some clothes, right?
Plus, the quick-thinking shopkeep and why locking the robbers inside his store didn't work.
I think it's outrageous that we could have up to 1,600 foreign workers working in a plant that's being subsidized by Ontario taxpayers.
And why a new electric vehicle plant in Windsor, costing taxpayers billions of dollars, could be staffed with up to 1,600 people from overseas. I'm Chris Glover, live in the CBC Toronto newsroom, and we're starting tonight in Port Credit and that quick-thinking shopkeep. This past Friday, a group of thieves showed up at his store and started robbing him. Now, to try to save his merchandise and protect himself, he locked the group inside his store and ran to call police. But after he got away, so too did the robbers. Greg Ross shows us how it all went down.
Security cameras at Pure 10 sneaker store on Lakeshore Road East show a teenager knocking on the front door.
Had a mask on about right here. You could still identify him, see his face. You didn't think much of it.
Thinking it was a potential customer, store owner James Latini opened the door to let him in. He very quickly realized this was no customer.
As soon as I unlock it, 3 other masked individuals come running in, push me out of the way.
Latini says they all appeared to be teenagers, and they immediately started grabbing clothing off of the racks.
The first thing that went through my mind is I gotta lock these guys inside, right? It's 4 against 1. I'm not gonna get hurt over some clothes, right?
And that's exactly what he did before running next door to call police. Inside, when the thieves realize that they've been locked in, one of them pulls out an axe and uses it to smash through the front window. They climb out and run to a nearby getaway car with piles of clothing from the store.
Bystanders actually recorded the car and got the license plate, but unfortunately the car was stolen.
In addition to the damage to the front window, the thieves got away with close to $15,000 worth of merchandise from the store.
We're in a little bit of shock.
Other store owners in the area are now feeling a little on edge.
I'm still kind of in disbelief for something this brazen to happen in daylight in a community that doesn't normally have this kind of thing happen.
Although there was an attempt at Pure 10 just about a week before. Security cameras at the back of the store captured masked men who pulled up in a white van attempting to use a crowbar to break in when the store was closed.
From what we know, it was a different crew that tried to come through our back door, but thankfully they were unsuccessful.
It's an active investigation.
Port Credit City Councillor Stephen Dasco says this has been one of the safest neighborhoods in Mississauga, and he'd like to keep it that way.
It's having more of a police presence, in the neighborhood, and also just being vigilant and having all of our store owners being vigilant as well.
Peel police say the robbery unit is now investigating, and they're looking into any possible connections to a similar robbery on the same day at a cell phone store in the Square One Mall. Greg Ross, CBC News, Mississauga.
Looking live at the downtown tonight, it is 0 and partly cloudy out there. Colette Kennedy is here with a first look at the forecast. Hey there, Colette. Not sure I was ready for this blast of Arctic air.
Yeah, Chris, that really took some getting used to this morning with a cool readings, -5, but feeling almost like -10 with that wind chill when it was factored in. But check out Barrie, Kitchener. Yeah, a little bit chillier there in terms of those readings. And then by the time we got to the afternoon, many cases kind of coming at least back towards freezing or above into southwestern Ontario as we have the system working its way towards us. Now, this is going to really have an impact on your Tuesday. It starts earlier for southwestern Ontario, but it stays as a rain event. Different scenario, though, for the Golden Horseshoe north towards Georgian Bay, as we'll have some rain close to the lakeshore here, but just a little further away to the north, we are talking about a rain-snow mix, and it doesn't last that long, and because it then turns over to all rain, it will wash away whatever we receive, but a few centimeters may well be mixed in there, kind of north of the 407 all the way towards Barrie, and more than that from Peterborough towards Ottawa. But even there, it does turn into a rain event, and that carries on into the afternoon, evening hours, and then tapers off overnight so that a few sprinkles may be left behind into Wednesday morning. 0 tonight, 4 tomorrow afternoon, but that temperature will keep coming up, and that's why it changes over to rain. I'll have more on all of this coming up, Chris.
All right, Colette, we'll talk to you again in just a few minutes. We have video to show you tonight that the public has never seen before. It was submitted today as evidence at the inquest into the death of Suleiman Fakiri, who died in an Ontario corrections facility back in 2016. Tyler Cheese has the details and reaction from Fakiri's family, and a warning: some viewers may find the footage Tyler's about to walk us through hard to watch.
A 20-minute video recorded inside Central East Correctional Facility in Lindsay shows Suleiman Fakiri's final moments. This footage has been made public for the first time at the inquest into the death of the then 30-year-old. According to the statement of facts, Fakiri was pepper sprayed in the face twice and received multiple physical strikes to his body and head before he died.
That video was a very shocking, painful one. And it was the first time for me, and I was struggling. My brother looked scared. He needed help.
Inquest counsel stated today that Fakiri should never have been behind bars. He suffered from schizophrenia and was waiting to be transferred to a hospital at the time of his death. His brother says he's glad that the public will be able to see the video for themselves.
I hope what the public sees, how someone with a mental illness, how they're treated in the correctional system. I hope what the public sees, that a man who needed help, who needed support, in the end is given to his family in a body bag.
The Fakiri family has been seeking justice for Suleiman's death for almost 7 years. No criminal charges were laid in his death following an investigation by the Ontario Provincial Police. But criminal defense lawyer Amna Qureshi says that could change following the inquest.
It's not out of the question that whatever comes up during this inquest can be used as evidence, compelling evidence to reopen an investigation.
She also says this case should be closely watched by all Canadians.
This inquest really is a moment for Canadians to be given this bird's eye view of how something like this could happen and to reckon with it.
She hopes this will spark a national discussion on how mental illness is treated by the criminal justice system. In the meantime, Fakiri's family says they want people to know what happened so that other families can be spared their pain.
Correctional system needs to be fixed. That people that are in this system are treating people with mental illness in a way that is not just egregious and painful and unjust, but the system needs to be transformed.
The inquest is expected to continue for another 15 days. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Taking you now to Scarborough, where Olivia Chow is determined to make good on a campaign promise to do things differently. Her first budget as mayor won't be tabled until next year, but already tonight she is getting an early start on public consultations, kicking off a week of meetings. And Patrick Swadden is live for us tonight at the Scarborough Civic Centre, where the public meeting just wrapped. Hey there, Patrick. Walk us through what you saw tonight.
Well, Chris, I can tell you it was a really good turnout. We saw a very engaged group of citizens, and from all the people we heard from tonight, the list of priorities that people put through was really as diverse as the group itself, but with the ear of local government wide open, everybody was very determined to be heard.
How many of you have heard that this city right now has a big deficit? It's $1.5 billion deficit.
Mayor Chow didn't sugarcoat things tonight, and that was the point, getting the public's opinion on what services were the most important, given the likelihood that some might have to be cut.
Our pressure in our shelter system alone is around $500 million heading into next year.
The city's new CFO saying even with a 1% property tax increase, it would only amount to a drop in a bucket, asking Torontonians to figure out together what gets supported and what gets axed.
I'm here today to try to advocate for more youth hub funding. A lot of the times these cooking programs that we're offering kids is the only hot meal that they're receiving in a week.
What I'd like to see is efforts increased to build modular rapid housing for our most vulnerable populations.
Many were focused on transit and affordable housing, but most were happy to have the ear of local government.
We talk a lot with our city councillor through work, but it's nice to interact with some more folks down at City Hall.
And that's important, says this expert, as the city looks to the province and feds for budget help.
The City of Toronto represents a huge proportion of the constituencies that the current Premier and the current Prime Minister hope to win in order to gain their re-election.
And Toronto will need both those levels of government to overcome its $1.5 billion deficit.
The mayor is being strategic and she's being wise in trying to have the public add its voice to the city's and the city council's push for additional revenue support.
Mayor Chow is sending an envoy to the nation's capital tomorrow, representing the Canadian Federation of Municipalities, including her deputy mayor.
We know that it's not just Toronto that is facing a real structural deficit right now, and all cities are struggling, and so we're coming together to advocate to the federal government over the next several days for a new deal for all municipalities.
Now, Chris, we understand that that group of councillors is going to be arriving in Ottawa tomorrow, the same day that the federal fall economic statement is expected. Now, what we do know is that the focus of that statement is going to be on rental and affordable housing. What we don't know is how the statement is going to affect budget negotiations with municipalities like Toronto's. Now, meanwhile, the public consultations like the one that happened behind me tonight, those are going to go on all week, and the results of those are going to be presented to the Toronto Budget Committee in January. And of course, the budget itself is expected to be tabled in February. Chris?
Thank you, Patrick. Patrick Swadden reporting live for us tonight in Scarborough. Now, while the mayor was out in Scarborough tonight, earlier today she was outside City Hall with members of the queer community to honor the lives lost to transphobia and anti-transgender violence.
Each person we remember here today represents a life cut short, a life extinguished, a soul distinguished by hatred and prejudice. And here in Toronto, we have no place for hate.
A flag-raising ceremony for the 24th annual Trans Day of Remembrance. People shared messages of encouragement while also calling out what they say is a rising tide of discrimination and violence, especially against two-spirit, transgender, and non-binary people. Then this evening, there was a vigil at the 519 with live performances and speeches to honor and celebrate trans lives and their resilience. Now to a new strategy unveiled today at City Hall to better handle the opioid crisis in Toronto. Thousands of people have died from opioid-related overdoses since 2015. As City Hall reporter Sean Jeffords shows us, the plan addressing mental health and substance use is being applauded by advocates as one that'll save lives.
The toll of the overdose crisis in Toronto continues to grow, and the city is unveiling a new mental health and substance use strategy to address the problem.
So it's really all hands on deck, because we realize that we are in a crisis situation and something needs to be done.
Board of Health Chair Chris Moyes describing the 5-year plan and highlighting the toll the crisis is taking on Toronto.
Tragically, nearly 3,000 people have succumbed to opioid-related overdoses since 2015, emphasizing the urgency for comprehensive services, including harm reduction, treatment, and social support.
The plan focuses on providing more housing for people with complex mental health needs. It would see the city's Board of Health endorse the expansion of the Community Crisis Support Team. But with a $1.5 billion budget deficit, Deputy Mayor Asma Malik says it will need more funding from other governments.
Well, first and foremost, it is costly not to act. And it is costly the way that we have been approaching the issues of mental health, substance use, harm reduction, and treatment so far.
A key priority in the first year of the strategy is establishing a 24/7 substance use-specific crisis center. Susan Davis says the service is an alternative to an emergency room where many people in crisis end up now.
We really need to have the supports in place. So crisis supports, like I said, are really key for that because we're there 24 hours when people need them, where they need them. And so it's a great access point.
Davis says these supports also don't involve law enforcement, which can prevent some from getting help.
People feel more comfortable reaching out when they know that that's not going to be the response they get, which also helps deal with some of the stigma that's associated with reaching out. And that's what we want, is for people to be able to access the health care that they need.
This outreach worker says she's glad to see the plan stress the need for access to stable housing, but she'd like to see the city move more quickly to take action.
We know that these things are life and death, and so the longer that these things take, people's lives are at stake.
The plan comes to Toronto's Board of Health for approval next week. It must ultimately be endorsed by City Council. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
Next to Pearson International, where Air Canada is tonight saying it bears no responsibility for a $24 million gold heist from back in April. Now, you might remember the daring heist in the spring when a thief made off with $24 million in gold and cash from Air Canada's warehouse at Pearson. The airline is now facing a lawsuit from security services company Brinks. The company had been contracted by a pair of Swiss companies to provide security and logistics for the shipment. According to federal court filings, Brinks says an unidentified individual gained access to the airline's cargo warehouse and presented phony paperwork about 40 minutes after an Air Canada flight from Zurich landed in Pearson. In a statement of defense, Air Canada rejected all allegations in the suit, saying it fulfilled its carriage contract. Returning now with a story about a Windsor car plant that revved up debate at Queen's Park today. Opposition parties are outraged that up to 1,600 jobs at an electric battery plant could be filled by foreign workers, not Ontarians. That's despite the fact that taxpayers helped pay for the plant, with the feds and the province providing billions of dollars in subsidies. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop has the story.
Work is already underway at the LG and Stellantis battery plant, set to provide thousands of jobs, made possible with $5 billion in tax breaks from the province, $10 billion from the federal government. Now there are concerns many workers could be South Koreans, not Canadians.
I don't know how many governments, federally or provincially, have to go through this before they understand and they listen to us and put strings attached to make sure that it's Ontario workers that are benefiting from the jobs.
Questions were raised about the EV plant's workforce after a social media post by Windsor Police. Officers met with the South Korean ambassador, with the police then writing that they expect to welcome 1,600 South Koreans living and working there next year.
I think it's outrageous that we could have up to 1,600 foreign workers working in a plant that's being subsidized by Ontario taxpayers. Sure, a handful of managers to help oversee it, but do they really need over 1,000 foreign workers?
Nexstar Energy is a company formed by LG and Stellantis involved in the battery plant. It says it's fully committed to hiring Canadians to fill more than 2,500 full-time positions, plus up to 2,300 tradespeople. It says the equipment installation phase of the project requires additional temporary, specialized global supplier staff who have proprietary knowledge and specialized expertise.
My message is simple: Ontario jobs first. This is a federal process. I was pleased to see Nexstar CEO come out just today.
The federal government also faced questions over the jobs.
Will the Prime Minister release the contract now so that we can find out how much Canadian taxpayers are going to have to spend to give paychecks to South Korean workers?
Will the Liberals guarantee that these jobs are unionized and go to the people in Windsor, Tecumseh, Essex County, and not a single cent goes to foreign workers?
The federal government says so far it's only approved one temporary foreign worker to fill a position there, and that approvals only come when no Canadians or permanent residents can be found to do the jobs. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Heads up for folks in Grey County. A freezing rain warning is in effect for tomorrow afternoon. And Colette, it is shaping up to be an active weather day.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like we're going to have a little bit of everything thrown at us. But I do really want to emphasize that it is mostly a rain event for the GTA, although there will be some mixing. So we start off with showers, and then it turns into a rain-snow mix, some wet snow in there through the later afternoon hours, and then it changes back to rainfall as that temperature keeps rising, 10 to 20 millimeters or so through the GTA. Breezy conditions, too, with the winds coming in off the lake, a kind of east to southeasterly flow. Thursday, we're going to have what I think will be the nicest day of the week. Wednesday's not bad, but still breezy. Thursday, we should have some sun mixing with the cloud. The temperature up close to seasonal, a little above. And then after that, some really cooler air is going to come in and stay through the weekend and into the beginning of December. So our ridge of high pressure leaving us. It gave us the very cool night overnight last night. This system with severe weather associated with it along that cold front, and then the moisture-laden area coming into southwestern Ontario in the morning hours. Will be dry for the morning commute into Toronto, and then we see it change over from rain to that rain-snow mix. You can see that and how that will expand as we get into the afternoon, that cold core area, and then the temperature keeps rising in the evening and it goes back to being rainfall. All with those breezy conditions in there too. Wednesday early morning, commuters still likely a few showers around, and then it does dry out, but quite a lot of cloud cover stays behind. So we may start to get some sunny breaks as the day wears on Wednesday, but still breezy, and that's why I'm kind of picking Thursday as a better day for this week. And then just having a look at the readings in terms of the amount of rainfall. Now, the areas that will get some of that snow, there is a few centimeters certainly possible just to the north of the 407, but it will be washed away as the rain comes in. But Peterborough towards Ottawa, before it changes to rain, more than 5 centimeters is possible. Some of the models were even doubling that. So we'll see how that all works in. Overnight temperatures very cool in the east, mild as the temps come up in the southwest, and that's why for Windsor, this is an all rain event. Into Wednesday, a few sprinkles early, and then we dry out and try to enjoy that Thursday forecast, Chris.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Colette. Ending the show tonight with an unusual sight for drivers on the 400 yesterday. Video shared by the OPP shows a llama approaching the highway with cars speeding past. Officers managed to corral the curious little guy with a piece of rope, and the OPP says the llama is now back home safe with its owners, adding drivers should slow down if they ever see a llama on a road. Good advice from the OPP there. All right, that is our show for you tonight. I'll be back with you tomorrow night at 11, and we'll see you then.